My father didn't just break my heart that night, he shattered everything I believed about family. How could you bring this shame on our family? Emma? His voice thundered through the kitchen, ricocheting off the walls, drowning out even the hum of the old ceiling fan. He stood at the head of the table, a towering figure of fury and disappointment. His hands clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. I sat frozen in my chair, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might crack my ribs. And across the room, leaning lazily against the counter, was Eliza, my twin sister, her arms folded, her expression unreadable, except for the faintest glint of something in her eyes, something almost triumphant. I didn't do it, I managed to choke out, my voice trembling but desperate. Dad, I swear to you, I didn't do anything wrong. Someone used my name, this isn't what it looks like. Eliza straightened, her lips pulling into a thin, practiced smile. Come on, Emma, she said, her voice dripping with fake pity. Everyone knows your name's all over those documents. Why don't you just stop lying and take responsibility? I turned to her, disbelief flooding my chest. She wasn't just watching me fall, she was helping push me off the cliff. My father's face hardened further, deepening the lines etched from years of raising us alone after Mom died. Are you really going to stand there and make excuses? After everything? His voice broke slightly on the last word, and that hurt more than the shouting. But I didn't, I started again. But he cut me off with a sharp wave of his hand. You're not welcome here until you can own up to your mistakes, he said, his voice low, final, slicing through me like a blade. The room spun slightly. It was like standing in a nightmare, screaming and realizing no one could hear you. I looked at Eliza again, searching her face for any hint of mercy, any sisterly bond that might pull her to my side. Nothing, just that calm, cool mask she wore so well. Dad, please, I whispered, my throat raw. I don't even know how those accounts got opened. Someone framed me. Eliza clicked her tongue sympathetically. Framed? She repeated, almost laughing. Come on, Emma, who would bother? And that was it. The duffel bag I packed that night felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Stuffed with more hurt than clothing. I didn't even hear the front door shut behind me as I left. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't. The night air bit at my skin as I trudged down the empty street, my sneakers scuffing the cracked sidewalk. I clutched the strap of my bag tighter, feeling like a ghost drifting through the only neighborhood I'd ever called home. At the end of the block, I turned back once. The warm glow from the living room window spilled out across the lawn, the home where I'd had birthday parties, Christmas mornings, all the memories that were supposed to mean something. Now it was just a house full of people who didn't believe in me anymore. I tried to push down the bitterness swelling in my chest, but it boiled over anyway. Eliza, she had stood there, watched me being crucified, and said nothing. No, worse, she had helped light the match. And yet, even as the anger flared, a tiny, terrified voice whispered in my mind, what if they're right? What if somehow, someway, I had gotten myself into this without realizing? What if I'd been careless with my identity? Too trusting? Too naive? I shook the thought away viciously. No, I knew myself. I knew my life. And I hadn't opened those accounts. Someone had set me up. Someone who wanted me out of the picture. I bought a one-way bus ticket to the nearest city with cash scraped together from my last paycheck. The clerk didn't even glance at me as he handed over the ticket. Just another anonymous lost soul passing through. I found a seat in the corner of the empty waiting room, the cracked vinyl sticking to the back of my legs. As the hours ticked by, I stared blankly at the yellowed clock on the wall, the heavy silence only broken by the occasional rumble of buses arriving and departing. Every thought spiraled into the same question: who would do this to me? The obvious answer was one I refused to look at too closely yet. Not Eliza. Never Eliza. We shared a womb. For God's sake. We used to switch places just to mess with teachers. We had matching scars on our knees from falling off our bikes the same summer. She wouldn't, would she? I pulled out my phone, scrolling numbly through old photos, birthday parties, vacations, selfies with goofy filters. There we were, side by side, identical in every way except the person inside. That was when a memory hit me, sharp and sudden like a shard of glass. A joke Eliza had made once. Years ago. I could totally be you for a day and no one would even notice. She'd said, laughing, stealing a fry off my plate. Imagine the chaos I could cause. At the time, I'd rolled my eyes, tossed a napkin at her. It was just a stupid joke, right? But now I wasn't so sure. The bus finally rolled in, its headlights slicing through the dark like twin searchlights. I stood, my legs stiff, and boarded without looking back, as the engine rumbled to life and the city lights blurred past. I made myself a silent promise. I didn't care how long it took or how ugly it got. I was going to find out the truth. And whoever had done this, whoever thought they could destroy me and walk away without consequences, they were going to regret underestimating Emma Morgan. The first few days in the city blurred together like rain against a windshield. Cheap motel rooms with peeling wallpaper. Greasy takeout containers stacked in corners. The constant ache of not belonging anywhere. I was running on adrenaline and sheer stubbornness. And deep down, I knew I couldn't survive like this for long. By day 3, desperation shoved me through the doors of a tiny boutique clothing store on the corner of 8th and Willow. "Help wanted" was scrawled across the window in faded marker. I filled out an application with shaking hands. And by some miracle, or maybe just because they were desperate too, I got the job. That's where I met Mia. She was a firecracker in combat boots, with bright red hair piled messily on top of her head and a tattoo of a sunflower winding up her left arm. She didn't ask questions the first day we worked together. Just showed me how to work the register and tossed me a chocolate bar when my stomach rumbled embarrassingly loud. "You look like you need it more than me," she said with a wink. It wasn't much, but it was the first kindness I'd felt in weeks. It cracked something inside me. On our lunch break, sitting on overturned milk crates behind the store, I found myself telling her bits and pieces, how I'd been kicked out. The loans, the accusations. I left out Eliza, though. That wound was still too raw. Mia listened without interrupting, nodding slowly, her boots tapping lightly against the concrete. "Sounds like somebody set you up," she said finally, tossing her sandwich wrapper into a trash can. "You ever think, maybe it's someone close?" The question hung in the air, thick and sticky. "I don't know," I said carefully, staring down at the cracked pavement. "I mean, I have a sister. We're identical twins." But I trailed off, not wanting to say it aloud, not wanting to believe it could be true. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Identical, huh? Well, if someone needed to pretend to be you, that sure makes it easy." I shook my head instinctively. "No, Eliza's perfect. Dad worships her. Everybody does." Mia just shrugged, taking a long sip from her soda. "Sometimes the ones who look perfect got the dirtiest hands." I wanted to argue, to defend Eliza, but the words wouldn't come. Because somewhere deep inside me, a small, traitorous part of me was whispering, what if she's right? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the lumpy motel bed, staring up at the water-stained ceiling, replaying every memory of Eliza I could dredge up. The way she used to charm teachers into giving her second chances. The way she could lie with a straight face and have people eating out of her hand 5 minutes later. I thought of the way she hadn't defended me in the kitchen that night. The way she had folded her arms and watched me get thrown out of my own home like I was trash. Slowly, like a photograph developing in a darkroom, a horrifying thought began to sharpen in my mind. What if it had been her all along? The next day, I cornered Mia by the stockroom. "If it was her," I said, my voice low, "how would I prove it?" Mia didn't miss a beat. "Paper trail," she said. "Credit applications, ID scans, anything official. If someone used your name, they had to fake it somehow. And most places keep records. Signatures, security footage sometimes. But she looks exactly like me," I pointed out, frustration gnawing at my gut. "Same face, same hair, everything." "Yeah," Mia said, grinning like she loved the challenge. "But even identical twins have tiny differences. Mannerisms, signatures, speech patterns. You just gotta find one thing she screwed up." It sounded so simple when she said it. We spent the next week sneaking in detective work between folding jeans and ringing up customers. Mia taught me how to pull public records online, how to search for account openings linked to my name. We flagged every suspicious transaction, every loan I supposedly took out. And that's when we found the first real crack. One of the loan documents had a signature on file. I pulled up an old copy of my real signature from when I applied for college scholarships. Just to compare. They were close. Scarily close. But not identical. Mia pointed to the capital E in Emma on both documents. See that? She said, tapping the screen. Yours has a little loop at the top. Hers doesn't. It's flat. I leaned in closer, my heart racing. She was right. It was tiny, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. But it was there. It wasn't my signature. It was hers, trying to be me. The twist hit me so hard I had to sit down. For a moment, the air around me felt thinner, like I couldn't get enough into my lungs. Eliza had actually done it. She hadn't just stood by and watched me fall, she'd pushed me. And worse, she'd counted on everyone believing her. On Dad choosing her. I pressed my hands against my face, trying to breathe. You okay? Mia asked, her voice softer now. No, I said truthfully, but I will be. Because now, for the first time since my world exploded, I had something solid, a weapon, evidence, proof. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I stood up, feeling steadier than I had in weeks. How fast can we find the rest? Mia grinned, fierce and unbreakable. As fast as you want. Girl, let's burn this thing down. And just like that, the tide turned. The next morning, I barely touched my coffee. My nerves were on fire. My stomach twisted into knots. Mia had texted me early, meet me at the downtown library. Bring everything. By the time I arrived, she already had a laptop open and a giant notebook spread across the table. Lines of notes scrawled in her messy handwriting. Okay, she said, slamming the laptop shut when she saw me. We know Eliza forged your signature. But that's not enough to blow this open yet. We need a smoking gun. Something she can't wriggle out of. I dropped into the seat across from her. My heart hammering. Where do we even start? She grinned, wild and electric. Credit reports. Baby, let's see if she slipped up anywhere. It took hours, long. Boring, mind-numbing hours, sifting through paperwork. Running cross-references, Googling banks, and calling customer service hotlines pretending to be confused about loan documents. It was exhausting, but then, Mia sat bolt upright in her chair, nearly knocking over her coffee. Emma, look, she hissed, yanking her laptop around so I could see. There it was, a security camera still from one of the loan offices. It was grainy, low res, but there was no mistaking the figure on the screen. She wore a navy blue blazer, her blonde hair tucked neatly behind one ear. It was Eliza, in my clothes, using my name. My knees went weak, and I had to clutch the edge of the table to steady myself. She even dressed like you, Mia said quietly, shaking her head in disbelief. She planned this. I stared at the image, my throat dry. A part of me still wanted to scream, maybe there's a mistake. But deep down, I knew better. I had known for a while now. Print it, I said, my voice flat. Print everything. We're going to build a case so tight she can't even breathe her way out of it. Mia grinned, sliding a stack of printed screenshots and forms across the table toward me. Already ahead of you. And for a moment, despite everything, I almost felt powerful, like maybe I wasn't completely helpless after all. But that small flicker of hope died the second my phone vibrated in my pocket. I glanced at the screen and froze. Dad. I stared at it, heart pounding. He hadn't called once since he kicked me out. Not a word, not a text, not a voicemail. Now he was calling? Mia saw the look on my face and raised an eyebrow. You gonna answer that? Slowly, I slid my thumb across the screen and lifted the phone to my ear. Hello? My voice cracked despite myself. There was a heavy silence. Then Dad's voice, low and tired. Emma, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. I leaned back in my chair, motioning for Mia to stay quiet. What do you want, Dad? I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. He sighed, a long, weary sound. Eliza, she's been talking to me. She said you're stirring up drama, threatening to sue her, to sue the family. I closed my eyes, the rage bubbling up instantly. Of course she was trying to flip the script. I'm not threatening anyone, I said, my voice shaking. I'm proving what she did. I have evidence, Dad, real evidence. She used my name to open loans. She framed me. Silence on the other end. Then, Emma, it's just hard to believe. A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. Hard to believe because what? Because she's the golden child? Because I'm the screw-up? That's not fair, he started. But I cut him off. No, it's not fair. None of this has been fair. But you know what? I'm done begging you to believe me. I have the proof. You'll see it soon enough. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands trembling with adrenaline and fury. Mia leaned forward, her eyes blazing. He still doesn't get it. Does he? I shook my head, blinking back the sudden sting of tears. No, but he will. Because I wasn't fighting just for myself anymore. I was fighting for the truth. And I was going to shove it right in their faces. Whether they were ready or not. The plan was simple. The annual Morgan family reunion was coming up next weekend. Everyone would be there, dad, aunts, uncles, cousins who barely remembered my name. It was the perfect stage. The perfect audience. If Eliza wanted to ruin my life in front of everyone, then I would return the favor. I'd expose her. Publicly. Mia helped me organize everything into a neat, brutal presentation. Timelines, documents, signatures, ID photos, every lie, every forgery, every fake smile Eliza had ever flashed while stabbing me in the back, it was all there. Lined up like dominoes. But the night before the reunion, as I lay awake in my motel bed, a dark thought crept in. What if it backfired? What if they still chose her? What if even with all the proof in the world, I was still the villain in their eyes? My gut twisted with fear. I sat up, shoving the blankets off. I grabbed my phone and opened the photo of Eliza at the bank one more time. Her face stared back at me. Identical to mine, except now, I could see the difference. The coldness in her eyes. The calculation in her smile. She wasn't me. She never had been. And tomorrow, everyone would finally see the truth. The morning of the family reunion dawned gray and heavy. The sky hanging low with the threat of rain. I sat in my car outside my dad's house, gripping the folder so tightly my knuckles ached. Inside that thin leather binder was my entire case, my proof. My voice. My chance to finally be heard. I closed my eyes and let out a slow, shaky breath. This is it, Emma. No backing out now. The driveway was already crowded with cars. Familiar faces filtered through the windows. Cousins and uncles and distant relatives gathering inside, laughing and hugging, blissfully unaware that today wasn't going to be just another cheerful Morgan family get-together. I stepped out of the car, my boots crunching against the gravel. Every step toward the house felt heavier, like I was wading through thick mud. By the time I reached the door, my hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the folder. The door swung open before I could knock. It was Eliza. She stood there in a navy sundress. Her blonde hair curled perfectly. A wineglass already in hand. She smiled at me, tight, strained, and for a moment, I could almost believe she felt a flicker of guilt. Almost. Emma, she said sweetly, stepping aside to let me in. So glad you could make it. I met her gaze head on. Wouldn't miss it. The tension was immediate, thick and suffocating. As I made my way into the living room, conversations died down, heads turned. My dad stood by the fireplace, his expression unreadable. I caught sight of Aunt Marjorie whispering furiously into Uncle Peter's ear. Both of them shooting me furtive glances. They all thought they knew. They didn't know anything. I cleared my throat, my voice trembling at first but growing stronger. I have something to say. The room stilled. 100 eyes burned into me. Eliza stiffened, her hand tightening around her glass. Not now, Emma, my dad said, his voice low. Warning, we're trying to have a nice day. I ignored him. I need 5 minutes, I said, holding up the folder, and then you can decide what kind of day it's going to be. Without waiting for permission, I moved to the coffee table and spread out the documents like a dealer laying down a royal flush. Loan applications, forged signatures, photos, screenshots, testimonies, silence pressed down harder than ever. I turned, my heart hammering so loud it drowned out the tick of the grandfather clock. Everyone here has heard the rumors, I said, my voice steady now. You've heard that I defaulted on loans. That I brought shame to this family. That I ruined my life through bad choices. I met my father's eyes. then Eliza's. But none of that is true. I picked up the first photo, a grainy shot of Eliza at the bank, and held it up for everyone to see. This is a security photo from one of the banks where the loans were opened. I said, that's not me. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. That's my twin sister, I said, turning slowly toward Eliza, using my name, my information, pretending to be me. A stunned silence fell. Even Aunt Marjorie's mouth hung open. I moved to the next piece, the fake ID, side by side with my real one. The employee remembered her. I continued, remembered the afternoon she came in, signed documents, took out loans, and they remembered because she talked about how hot it was outside. I paused, letting the details sink in, letting them picture it. Eliza's face was white as chalk. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no sound came out. I pressed on, slamming down the last nail. I didn't just get unlucky. I was framed by the person I trusted the most. Murmurs erupted, heads whipped between me and Eliza, confusion giving way to suspicion. That's when my dad stepped forward. Emma, he said, his voice trembling, are you accusing your sister of? I'm not accusing her, I cut in sharply. I'm proving it. I shoved the last piece into his hands, the final bank statement showing a transfer from one of the fraudulent accounts to Eliza's personal account. A direct link. An undeniable betrayal. My dad's face paled as he stared at the evidence. His hand dropped to his side, the paper fluttering to the floor. The room exploded. Voices rose, people talking over each other, some demanding answers, others hushing the chaos. Eliza backed away slowly, like she was cornered. You're twisting everything, she finally screamed, her voice cracking under the pressure. You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to get this far. Wasn't supposed to what, Eliza? I demanded. Wasn't supposed to destroy my life? To make Dad throw me out? To have everyone believe I'm some kind of criminal? Her face twisted, desperate, scrambling for an escape. I needed the money. I didn't think, Dad always gave you everything. You were the favorite even when you didn't deserve it. A gasp went through the room. Even I blinked, stunned at her words. You always acted so perfect. She hissed, tears now streaming down her face. I just wanted a chance to be someone for once. I shook my head slowly, heartbreaking a little at the sight of her, so small. So pathetic, but not enough to forget what she'd done. You didn't want to be someone, I said quietly. You wanted to steal what I built. Another long silence. Then, for the first time all night, my father spoke. Eliza, he said, his voice broken. Get out. She stared at him, mouth open in horror. Dad. Now, he said, the finality in his tone cutting through the room like a guillotine. Eliza dropped her glass, the shattering sound ringing through the stunned silence. She turned and ran, pushing through the crowd, sobbing. No one stopped her. No one called after her. Everyone just watched. Just like I had, all those times before, when she got away with everything. But not this time. This time, she had to live with what she'd done. The front door slammed shut behind Eliza, and for a long moment, the house stood frozen in stunned silence. I could feel 100 eyes on me. But for once, I didn't shrink under their weight. I stood tall, my heart pounding but my spine straight. My father finally turned to face me. The anger drained from his face, replaced by something else, shame. Emma, he started, his voice rough, almost pleading. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to, I said, my voice steady but not unkind. I didn't come here to rub it in anyone's face. I just wanted the truth out. That's all. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, struggling for words. For once, my father, the man who always seemed so sure, so unshakable, looked completely lost. I'm sorry, he said finally, his voice cracking. I should have believed you. The apology hit harder than I expected. For a second, the fight inside me wavered, replaced by a raw ache I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I nodded, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. I know. Around us, the room buzzed with awkward conversations. Cousins shifted uncomfortably. Aunts and uncles avoided my gaze. Some looked ashamed. Some looked curious. None of it mattered. I wasn't here for them. I was here for me. I gathered the folder back into my bag, my hands trembling slightly now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Dad reached out like he wanted to stop me, to say more, but he hesitated, his hand falling uselessly to his side. I walked past him, past the stunned faces, and out into the crisp evening air. Freedom tasted cold and sweet. As I stepped onto the driveway, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, half expecting my dad again. But it was Mia. She grinned, her arms crossed over her chest, her red hair gleaming under the porch light. "You didn't tell me you were going to burn the house down," she said, laughter dancing in her voice. I let out a breathless laugh, some of the tension melting from my shoulders. "It wasn't exactly planned. Could have fooled me," she teased, bumping my shoulder lightly. "That was badass." I smiled for real this time, the weight of the past few months finally starting to lift. "Thank you," I said, meaning it more deeply than she probably knew. She tilted her head, studying me. "You good?" "I will be," I said, and for the first time in a long while, I actually meant it. Just as I turned toward my car, a movement caught my eye. Across the street, standing half in shadow, was Eliza. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her face pale and blotchy from crying. She watched me, her expression raw, broken. For a moment, our eyes locked, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small next to her. I didn't feel like the lesser twin, the backup plan, the afterthought. I saw her for what she truly was, a scared, selfish girl who made a choice and now had to live with it. I thought about going over there, about saying something, but what was left to say? Some wounds you had to let fester on their own. I turned away without a word and got into my car. Mia slid into the passenger seat, buckling her seatbelt with a loud click. "Where to, champion?" I laughed, a real belly laugh that startled even me. "Anywhere but here." We pulled away from the curb, leaving the house and the past behind. The next few weeks were strange. Word about what happened at the reunion spread through the family like wildfire. Some relatives called to apologize. Some didn't call at all. I didn't care. I wasn't chasing anyone's approval anymore. My dad tried, he really did. He reached out, awkwardly at first, fumbling through clumsy attempts at reconciliation. We met for coffee a few times. It was stiff, uncomfortable, but each time, the conversations got a little easier, a little warmer. Healing wasn't instant, but it was real. Meanwhile, Eliza disappeared from the family radar. No more brunch selfies, no more perfect daughter updates. She kept her head down. And for once, there were no schemes, no sweet talking her way back into favor. From what I heard, she was working overtime at a dead-end job, scraping together money to pay off the loans she'd taken out in my name. It wasn't enough to erase the hurt, but knowing she was taking responsibility, it mattered. It mattered more than revenge ever could. One rainy Saturday, as I was organizing a new shipment at the clothing store, my phone buzzed. I wiped my hands on my jeans and glanced down. It was a text from Dad. "Dad, dinner? Just us? I'd really like to talk." I stared at the screen, my heart hammering unexpectedly hard. For a second, I considered ignoring it, pretending I was too busy, too tired, too hurt. But then I thought about everything I'd fought through, everything I had proven. I had nothing to be afraid of anymore. Later that night, we sat across from each other at a small diner, a pot of coffee steaming between us. The rain tapped steadily against the windows, a soft, soothing soundtrack. Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. "Emma, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you my trust back." I sipped my coffee, waiting. "I believed the wrong daughter," he said, pain flickering across his face. "And I didn't even give you a chance to explain. I failed you." I looked at him for a long moment. The old me might have jumped to comfort him, might have rushed to smooth things over. "Not anymore." "I know," I said simply, "but you're trying now, and that's what matters." He blinked, surprised by my calmness. I smiled faintly. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Dad. Just, don't ever make me invisible again." His face crumpled slightly, but he nodded, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I won't," he said hoarsely. "Never again." And just like that, the last heavy piece of the past slid off my shoulders. As we left the diner, the rain had slowed to a mist. I stood there for a moment, breathing it in, feeling it wash over me. I wasn't the broken twin anymore. I wasn't the background character in someone else's story. I was Emma Morgan, And for the first time in my life, I was finally standing in my own light.